the top pick last night. Check out Paolo Banchero's suit. I mean, I think it's supposed to be gem rhinestones.
Purple rain.
Yeah, it's cold.
Purple rain.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Tell him again, Pink. I said, I hear you perk.
You know, yes, sir.
Hey, Ryan, would you sport a suit? Ryan, RC, would you sport a suit like that on draft night?
I'm not tall enough, right? When you're 5'11", those rhinestones get very, very close. You can only do that when you're 6'7" or 6'8" and you're slim. If you're built like me, you do not look good at that. There's only two people in the world that can pull that off, and that's Prince and that's Paolo. And he got to pull it off because he's the #1 overall draft pick. And then he had that ice on his neck, too. It looked clean to me. It was cold. It was a fit in a suit that was befitting of the first overall pick.
Wow, you thought he pulled it off. All right. I thought it was little trinkets hanging off of it. I don't know. It's like, I won't say more. I'll give him his moment. He was a #1 pick. He deserves it. Welcome back to Get Up. We're coming to you live from above the Heineken River deck at Pier 17. Look who's here, Big Perk. Ready to talk some basketball. You just saw RC, all the guys coming to talk football. But let's get going, Cindy, and have them get up with Paolo Banchero. And we start with the top of the draft, the NBA draft, that is. The Magic, in a bit of a surprise, took Paolo Banchero #1. He was the 14th player to go first overall in the modern draft era, breaking a tie with Kentucky for the most over that span. And then there was Chet Holmgren, who was the #1 overall recruit in 2021. He went #2 overall to the Thunder, now the highest drafted player to come from Gonzaga in the modern draft era. And the Rockets selected Auburn's Jabari Smith Jr. at #3. Houston hasn't drafted an eventual All-Star since Yao Ming in 2002, the longest active drought for any franchise. So this is the 4th time in the modern draft era that the top 3 players were 6'10" or taller, and the first time since 2001, also the first time freshmen went 1, 2, 3 since 2017. Fultz, Ball, as in Lonzo, and Jason Tatum were the top 3 picks. But there was an even bigger story. It was this man, Kyrie Irving, created a list of teams that he'd like the Nets to consider working with on a sign and trade if he and the team can't agree to terms for him to stay. Woj joined us in the last hour, and he had this to say about that.
This is a really murky scenario right now between Kyrie Irving, the Nets, and Kevin Durant. He has a $36 million player option he can opt into midweek next week, or he could opt out, become a free agent. And right now it's a situation in the marketplace where there's no cap space out there for Kyrie Irving to leverage the Nets. The only thing they can legally negotiate right now is an extension off of that $36 million number. It's looking less likely that, at the very least, you're going to see Kyrie Irving on any kind of long-term deal.
So here's the list that everybody's talking about. Both LA teams are on his list, as well as the crosstown Knicks. That would be interesting. The Heat, the Mavericks, and the 76ers. Now, none of those teams have cap space to sign him without Brooklyn's help, and sources said some of them aren't interested in acquiring him in the first place. So let's bring back in Perk and RC and Brian Windhorst joining us now. And Wendy, set the scene for what looms over Kyrie and the Nets over the next 5 days. Oh, we're having some problems with Wendy's sound, but we're going to...
More money.
Oh, there he goes. Go ahead, Wendy. Go ahead.
Oh, sorry. Anyway, sorry. The big thing with Kyrie is the decision to opt in or not. Obviously, if he opts in, it's vastly more money. And the problem with opting in is that it really reduces the options that he can go to any of those teams. For example, the Lakers would love to have him for the $6 million mid-level exception. But when he goes to opt in and now he has a $36 million salary, it pretty much eliminates them from trading for him because there's no trade package that they can offer Brooklyn that they would accept. Same situation for the Los Angeles Clippers. So really this comes back to, no matter how long the list is, it comes back to whether Kyrie is willing to actually opt out of that contract and sacrifice the guarantee to give himself more options. I know that this seems like it would be more simple because Kyrie would be able to work out potentially where he would want to go, but teams can't really know whether they want Kyrie or can afford Kyrie or not until he makes that first decision. And once he makes a first decision, it potentially changes his leverage. So this is a completely unusual scenario, and it would be complicated even if it was a star player with no problems. Considering everything around him, it's very hard for any of these teams to truly get in this bidding war when they don't know which path he's going to take.
The Nets are truly in a mess. So, Perk, I look at this and I wonder, what do you make of what's happening now with Kyrie?
Well, I think Wendy hit on it, right? He used the word unusual. And that's what I think about when it comes down to Kyrie Irving. Unusual, right? Every time it's a big moment in the basketball world, we look at the NBA draft last night, and we're talking about Kyrie Irving. We looked at when the NBA went down to the bubble. We was talking about Kyrie Irving. Some type of way he's going to make it about him. Now, I say that to say this. Listen, Kyrie Irving is a special talent. We understand he has a little some problems. When people go right, he tends to go left. You can't trust him if you're an organization. But one thing that you can trust is when he get between those lines that he's going to perform at a high level. And so when I look at this situation in particular, I don't see the Brooklyn Nets and Kyrie Irving fixing or coming to a solution except for him leaving at this point. They don't trust him. I think at this point in time, he really don't want to be there, and he's showing us those signs. If a person show you who they are, you have to believe.
Do you think he's more likely to go than stay then?
I mean, yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow, RC. So if that happens, you look at this list, and I know you've been following the Kyrie story closely, so I wanted to bring you in on this.
Absolutely.
You look at this list, which team is the best fit?
You know, first off, I want to add something to what Perk said about Kyrie. And when you talk about Kyrie really making things about himself and us talking about him at the draft and different situations when Kyrie Irving isn't playing, it is because he'll go left when others go right, but it's also because he's just a dang good basketball player. He's one of the best in the world at what he does, and that's why we speak of him. So when you look at a team like the Miami Heat, and don't get me wrong, I love Kyle Lowry, Matt Strus, I love Tyler Hero, Gabe Vincent, Victor Oladipo, all of those guys, but think about the way Jimmy Butler had to exhaust himself in some of those wins in the playoffs just to get them to the conference finals and lose to Boston. When you have a guy like Kyrie that can take some of that scoring load, someone who is a walking bucket as soon as he steps between the lines, that's someone that you're willing to give up some of those players for and figure out a way to team him with Jimmy Butler. And now a team that has just been on the cusp for 2 of the last 3 years, to me, would have an opportunity to win it all with that type of talent on the team, with a leader and an attitude setter and tone setter like Jimmy Butler.
Man, what a team that would be with him. Go ahead.
RC, you do realize when we talk about the Miami Heat, we're talking about one of the best coaches in basketball. We're talking about the ultimate godfather in Pat Riley, who don't give a damn. We're talking about one of the ultimate leaders in Eric Spoelstra, who don't care about calling players out because he has the OG to have his back in Udonis Haslem. I don't see that working. I don't understand how Kyrie Irving could even want to go to South Beach knowing that they wouldn't deal with his shenanigans.
What's the Godfather move? The Godfather move is not to trade for Kyrie Irving. The Godfather move is to let the Kyrie Irving situation blow up and then wait for Kevin Durant to say he wants out of there.
Yeah,
that's the Miami Heat move. Wow. And that's some of the teams on this list are like, I don't want anything to do with Kyrie Irving. I want what comes after that. Now, Kevin Durant has a new podcast on his Boardroom Network that is out this morning where Kevin Durant speaks about this situation for the first time, as far as I can tell. He doesn't say much. He says that Kyrie Irving and he are in contact, but that he's going to stay out of it and stay back and not get involved because this is his situation. He certainly had the opportunity to voice a strong opinion. He did not. But that's what you got to understand, Ryan. When the teams that are on this list are looking at it and evaluating Kyrie, they're not just evaluating what's going to happen there. They're evaluating what the next move could potentially be.
I agree, but isn't that the problem? Isn't that the problem when it comes down to KD? I believe, KD is a special talent. We understand one of the best basketball players, if not the best in the world. But when it comes down to holding his teammates and his quote-unquote brothers accountable, he does a poor job at that. He holds the media and people on the Twitter app more accountable than he do the players in his locker room. What do you mean he's going to stay out of that? Like, we're talking about a guy that you plan with Kyrie Irving to come down to Brooklyn and play together.
Are you saying part of his job is to keep Kyrie there to make sure that
KP,
works? To make sure.
I mean, part of his job is to be honest with his brother.
Okay.
Part of his job is to hold his brother accountable. He's had his back throughout this whole time. When people attack Kyrie Irving, Kevin Durant attacked those people. At what point are you going to hold him accountable and say, hey, bro, hey, listen, I'm tired of it. I love you.
But
to
KP.
death, but when are you going to provide for me what I need you to provide and have my back?
Go ahead, RC.
But I'm saying, but Kendrick, you don't know if Kevin Durant is doing that behind the scenes. And now, I don't know if he is either, but he's not supposed to come out on a podcast and say I'm holding Kyrie accountable. He's not supposed to come out on a podcast and talk about Kyrie Irving's business. You know that as well as I know that. KP, this is how it works, and you from a place that's just like from a place like that where I'm from. I'm with you when you right, and I'm with you when you wrong in public. Now, if he feels that Kyrie is doing some things or he wants Kyrie to come back, you have that conversation with Kyrie. But you certainly don't come out on a podcast and voice that publicly, because now it messes up the situation even more.
I didn't say you had to come out publicly. But when you look at Kyrie actions, are you going to sit up here and tell me that Kevin Durant has been holding Kyrie Irving accountable? Or see, you have kids. If your kids and you're going to somebody else's house for a kickback or a family gathering, and your kids are going to these people's house and destroying these people's houses, jumping on couches and things to that nature, what those people going to say? Hey, what are these people going to say? They're going to say, you know what? RC is not doing a great job at home disciplining their kids. But if your kids go to their house and they're sitting down and they're being polite and they're saying, yes, ma'am, no, ma'am, yes, sir, and those people are saying, oh, they're just some sweet babies, then guess what? Those people are going to say, Ryan Clark is doing an excellent job at his house.
That's not the same thing.
It is the
That is
same
not
thing.
the same thing, KP.
It is the same thing.
He says that because his kids are always the sweet ones, right? RC, I bet. Maybe not. All right, hey, but Wendy, this brings up a really good point, though. Really quick, producers. I know we want to move on, but I just have to say, we're talking about accountability, and I wonder if there's still interest among all these teams in Kyrie, because one of the biggest things here is it's hard to hold him accountable. He's just a different dude, Wendy. He's a guy who kind of marches to the beat of his own drummer. So when these other teams are looking at him, even if he does opt out, is he going to be the kind of player, even for $6 million, that they want to bring in, given the history and everything else?
For $6 million, the Lakers would crawl over glass to get him, for sure. For a $200 million contract extension, where you have to give him all of that money and all of that trust, no, that is a much smaller list. But the list does exist. And something happened last night that I found, probably to me, the biggest story of last night, other than the change in the number one pick expected, is what the New York Knicks did in relation to their chances with Kyrie Irving. 24 hours ago, I was on here saying, I'm not seeing the Knicks doing anything that indicates they're interested in Kyrie. Well, that changed. Last night, the Knicks traded out of the lottery, not out of the 27th pick. The Knicks traded out of the lottery and picked up 3 first-round picks in doing so, and completely maneuvered with 3 trades in about 15 minutes to begin to clear salary cap space. And the Knicks, as we sit here today, have about $20 million in salary cap space they didn't have yesterday, and they now have, believe it or not, 8 first-round draft picks that they are able to trade to either clear more space or use in trades for players. The situation that we believe is their number one priority is Jalen Brunson. Jalen Brunson and the Knicks are in a free agent situation like I've never seen in my career, because his father is now on the Knicks coaching staff. The president of the Knicks held him as a baby, and the son of the president of the Knicks, Leon Rose's son Sam, is one of Jalen Brunson's agents, and he is an unrestricted free agent. I promise you, the Knicks are more aware of Jalen Brunson's intentions than any free agent in any team in the history of free agency. There's no way that they don't know. So why are they clearing this cap space? Are they clearing this cap space because they know that they're going to be able to get Jalen Brunson? Or are they clearing this cap space because Kyrie Irving has suddenly become potentially available? And I would would not prioritize Kyrie Irving if I were the Knicks, and I'm not saying that the Knicks are doing that. But when you look at the Knicks' move last night, Kyrie Irving went from well, maybe, I guess we could talk about it, to a viable option if they want to go that route. Kyrie now has an option that if he were to opt out of his contract, the Knicks, without too much work, could open up a cap space to sign him. They also could do it for Jalen Brunson. So the big development in the Kyrie Irving sweepstakes yesterday wasn't this list that Woj got. I mean, it was very good reporting and certainly was fascinating. A team actually started making moves that could potentially get Kyrie Irving in